Hello and welcome to another episode of the Transfer Show on the YouTube version of Anfield Index. And I am joined, of course, for this show by Dave Davis, who is our resident transfer guru, the man who goes about ferreting out the information so that we actually have a show to bring you. And wow, we actually have a show to bring you. It's good, Dave. It's nice to have not just one, but two shows back to back weeks where we actually aren't just going to be filling in airtime wondering will Liverpool do things. There seems to be actual rumblings afoot in terms of potential for moves, and more to the point, one or two of the things that we were hoping would have gotten done long ago. So without further ado, welcome to the show, man.
Looking forward to it, especially because we can just park the Fulham shite for now and just get back into like the summer and leaning forward and title wins and who may be here, who may not be.
Yeah, look, I guess there's no other choice. There's 7 games left for these guys to get this done and 4 wins to be accrued in those 7 games. And like, I mean, watching yesterday was painful. And I think it was a painful illustration, wasn't it, really, of a couple of the specific areas that you and I have talked about wanting to need to see some improvement in them. Certainly in the summer, there's nothing much we can do. That we knew that there's nothing we can do with the squad as is. We were hoping something might happen at Christmas. It didn't. We can see now clearly it must happen in the summer, and we are both of the opinion that it's going to be a big one. But we wanted continuity too, and that's where we start with the biggest story, because it is at least a hint towards somebody hanging around who we really want to do so. So do you want to fill people in on what happened with the Virgil thing? Because a lot of people, I think, come to a show like this and they've heard bits and bobs or they've read a headline. They don't know the actual ifs and buts about it. I listened to the audio just to be absolutely doubly sure that I wasn't losing the plot completely. And I thought it was quite illustrative and very positive.
Yeah, the audio, Lewis Steele, almost like the Rockefeller files, wasn't it, when he released it earlier today? So, yeah, it came up, and you'll see that Paul Joyce and others have wrote about it because it's big news, isn't it? Virgil van Dijk asked in the mix zone, is there any progress? And when, as you know, Trev, as per the clip, yeah, there's progress. Absolutely, which we were like, that's what we like to hear. It's not quite exactly what we want to hear because we want to hear about pen on paper and the Axeline, but it's positive. And naturally, there was a few questions then around like, quite good from Lewis Steele, like, can you give us some update on this progress? And he laughed and said, we'll have to wait and see, but reiterated that he loves the club loves him. And we reached out to various journalists. You can probably work out which ones that I might have discussed there. And the whole thing around Virgil van Dijk, which is important to say now, the feeling across the journalistic pack, other journalists that were in that mix zone as well, it's important to say, Trev, from his body language, his smiles, everything like that, not if, when. That was the big thing they all took from it. And then, we'll have to see when this lands. So I took that as a huge positive. No two ways. We all should. Virgil van Dijk says there's been progress. How could it not be a positive there? So that's good. Then eyebrow emoji double raise that obviously was on for Fabrizio Romano there. That he says that. Oh, and who happened to like that, Trev? Just Milos Kerkez, official account on social media. So obviously everyone's going off the chain with this one. And do you know what? Why not? It's transfer talk. Let's just get a little bit excited because we've kind of spoken about this a little bit. Kerkez almost has that feeling around like McAllister last summer, and almost an air of inevitability towards it. His dad's spoken about it. His agent's spoken about it. And his agent, the info we've got through our normal digging, haranguing, asking around this week, that the agent for Milos Kerkez now, also the agent for Federico Chiesa. Now, who did Federico Chiesa move to this summer? Who has a good relationship with an Italian agent, etc.? So, yeah, could Dickie Hughes be in the mix? I know people will be saying he's not on contracts, but Kerkez isn't a contract. It's an attempted signing, isn't it? Clearly in that regard. So, the fact he's now officially liking Van Dijk tweets, where we can all draw the dots. We all love a good conspiracy theory, don't we, at the same time? And the other thing to mention on the update from this is that Paul Joyce mentioned it in his article there. Konate, that Liverpool had an offer. He's looking for closer to 200 grand. So definitely not small potatoes at all. No real news on that. But maybe we're getting too excited, Trev. But Van Dijk says there's progress. Kirkes is liking official tweets. We're talking about Konate and possible contracts. It's just a good time to get excited tonight, eh?
I'm leaning into the giddiness, and I'll explain why. I'm way too old to be worrying about who's liking whose stuff on social media, except unless Virgil and Milos Kerkez are odd bedfellow pals. Like, it doesn't make any sense that he would, like, are they sort of buddies on the side? Do they like, have they got a tennis game on a Wednesday? It doesn't make any sense. So I think that that's interesting, for that reason, because they seem to be unlikely lads who would be hanging out. Why would they? So that to me is encouraging. It's the kind of thing you would do if you were seeing the news of the best footballer at the club or the second best footballer, joint best footballer at the club, saying he's going to stay just before you sign on the dotted line. That to me would warrant a little smiley face. The Ibu Konate thing is hilarious, because for it to break just now on the back of his absolutely shambolic showing yesterday is really interesting. And I don't know if you heard this figure, Dave, about what he's currently on is in the region of 80 grand. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
So the push to 200, especially on the back of yesterday, is going to be quite a big ask, you'd imagine. But it is nice to be able to think about him hanging around as well. And we did say, didn't we, you and I, that, you know, one of the massive influencing factors would be if the other lad stays. In other words, if Virgil hangs around, then there has to be a fair old chance that his pal and his brother in arms will hang around as well. And, you know, just on the way that the conversation went with Virgil, with Lewis Steele, it did seem very relaxed, didn't it? When he was saying about we'll wait and see, it didn't have that sort of edge that it previously had, where he was talking about if anyone's telling anything different, they're a liar. You know, this kind of thing. It seemed really calm, and I thought it was easy to interpret positive vibes from that, and I certainly took that away from it.
Yeah, I agree, because you think it was going back a fair few weeks, but when there was whole, like, if anyone said anything in the line, you thought there's a bit of an edge to these lines a little bit. This isn't what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear progress. This is Virgil stating categorically, yes, there has been progress. Those words, if you listen to the recording, have left his mouth. Naturally, as you said, there's almost you can sense it. And as Lewis Steele kind of alluded to, almost a relaxed part from Virgil. So I think it's right, people. If you can't get giddy on a Monday night, when can you get giddy, eh?
Let's just take this one little step further, because people, again, they want the Reds content first and foremost on a Liverpool transfer show. And if there is a link to Kirkes, see, I get most of my daily update via your namesake, young Hendrik, and I listen to his show on a regular basis. And you hear him assessing, and he was going through all the different types of options for left back. And then you listen to other people talk, and quite often it's a good rule of thumb that the lads who are getting paid the most to do the talking are probably the least intelligent and insightful. And I have heard quite a lot of wary stuff about Kirkes, just because he might not be the exact fit that we need. But then here's where I'm going with this. You see, God love him, it was storybook levels of awful, the Andy Robertson performance, especially around that goal. But it was kind of ongoing. And then he really started, you never doubt this kid's effort. He really put in the effort. He kept going. And he was involved in a few dangerous bits towards the end of his time on the pitch. We can all see, Dave, can't we, that it would be a wonderful thing to update. And I watched this guy, Kirkes, and I am not as analytical about how players operate in systems as some other people are. I just watch and do the eye test. And for me, he's powerful. He's quick. He's got enough technique to carry the ball forward. He can get a crossover. He might not be as good as peak Robertson, but then there's a lot of development time for him too. I'm really in on this transfer, even if it is going to be a little bit expensive at a potential 45 million, I think was the reported price. Do you find yourself excited by this one?
Oh, God, how not to sound like the Tory politician for like little whinging type of thing. Yes and no, a little bit, Trev. That is he an upgrade on what we've got now, which is sad to say just because of how far Robbo's fallen. Yes, I think that's a positive. Like you said, the raw attributes are there. Pace, power, aggression. Those are in the pro column, no doubts about it. There is another side, and we've analysed him on transfer market metrics, me and Bart. So we pulled a lot of his data. Not the best in the air at all. That's really got to be said. So that's something just to keep in mind. Robertson is better in the air. There is an element of rashness to his game, a little bit, I think. You know, sometimes front foot players, that can fall hand in hand. You've got to keep in mind, obviously, he's a youngster. So, you know, if he gets in Slot's hands, he could redefine him that way or refine him a little bit. And then the price is a funny one, isn't it? Because I always find it mixed. When I do transfer market metrics, I'll say it's quite high in the market. But then we'll also talk like me and you go, it's not my freaking money, is it? Do I really care that much as well? It's a little bit like that. The only thing that I think it's fair to say on price, Liverpool's record fullback, Christ, I forgot this. It was that long ago. Glenn Johnson, do you remember, Trev? 17.5 million quid from Portsmouth. That's how long we're going back. Whatever you think of Robbo and Tsimikas, good market purchases. Robbo, 8 million, unbelievable value, you know, absolutely insane value. Even Tsimikas around the 12 million mark has been good value for what you've got from him and probably what's worth now. 45 million. It ain't my money, but I would understand people who said a bit rich for my blood. And I also understand people who look at others like Carreras at Benfica, Hato at Ajax and think that would be more my type, even though we're different profiles. I get that at the same time, but there feels an air of inevitability towards this one. So whilst that's the case, and whilst it's not my money, all in on it.
Yeah, specifically because it's not my money, and I'm not quite sure about the plug and play aspect of Hato or Carreras. Carreras is particularly young, isn't he? I'm not quite sure if they're good to go. Whereas we know that this other dude is going to just be able to pull on a jersey and be a Liverpool first teamer. So again, with the caveat that it ain't our money, I'm just like sign them all up. Let's do it. Let's do it. It's encouraging and all of that from a like. God bless us. Let's talk about some forwards that we've been linked to, and the palindromic Ekiteke has been linked with Liverpool. We know that he is someone that we've looked at. I heard stories during the week and in recent weeks around Rory Delap. And you heard a great one today of our mask-wearing friend, Victor Osimhen as well. So, I mean, this is all very, very tasty stuff. It does lean, doesn't it, heavily into the thing you and I were saying, that it does look like quite the clear out up top. You wouldn't be surprised to see them coin in on the potential for Darwin, Diaz and Jota all bringing in big money. I know people think that's mad. I wouldn't be surprised to see all three go. I really wouldn't. I think this is part of the bigger plan here. This kind of massive overhaul. And they would all put it this way. Jota will never have a better opportunity to get you some money. Neither will Darwin. Neither will Diaz. So if that is the bottom line, I can see this happening. Talk to us about the rumors of people who are being linked with it, because at least there are a few of them, and they all seem to be of a level that we could be getting excited about.
Yeah, it almost feels like since the Isaac and Alvarez ones for the big money, there's been a few come in that are maybe the price tag below, but you understand why people get excited to a certain degree. And Ekiteke, for those that watch the Bundesliga or, you know, we did it on transfer market metrics, there is a lot to like for a young 22-year-old forward. There's real potential there. The warning comes a little bit with Ekiteke. Going to be deadly honest. there's lots of talk about when Liverpool and other Premier League clubs are interested in him. I'm just going to be dead bland, Trev, dead blatant, actually, rather than anything else. It's coming from his agent. His agent is telling all and sundry that there's interest galore, which it does not mean it's false, just to be clear, people. But, sometimes agents like to drum up interest, don't they, in their clients and create things that maybe aren't there, which also Liverpool don't like. We don't like getting in bidding wars. We don't like, big public. It's not how we operate. We have to be honest about that. So, if you like Ekitike, and I think he's a very good player, has a real potential, there is a note of caution from the agent. That's the first one to say. The second one on the screen, Liam Delap. Now, Liam Delap has, I think he's hit 12 goals for Ipswich. So some will just go, not good enough, no chance, blah, 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 rule him out, etc. Doing some real digging on this, Trev, this is a proper nerd one. The nerds really like the raw attributes of this fella. And the info that we've got is a powerful runner, Trev. A really powerful, as we've seen with the eye test, a really strong, powerful runner. The other thing we got from the analyst is a player with the ability to occupy 3 defenders on his own at the same time. Also, his shooting is okay, as they say, but he does a lot of his shots in between the sticks in the right area. And with a bit of refinement, a lot to like. So that was the first sort of point that Liverpool have been interested in watching the player. The second big thing that's come out is literally, it's almost like the Vince McMahon meme where they were like, oh, a player that can occupy 3, all this. And then it came out, Liam Delap's got a 40 million release clause. And I guarantee you, abacuses and spirit levels were being balanced everywhere you can imagine in that sort of nerd war room in that regard. Because 40 million homegrown as well for that age. It's one of those that I just think it won't be the sexiest for a lot of people, but I am definitely not going to dismiss it at all because of that info we've got. So Liam Delap, keeping that. I mean, let's be honest, if it's not us, he's going to a better Premier League team than Ipswich, isn't he? He's staying in the Premier League. He's too good, 40 million quid. And then the third one, Victor Osimhen. And people will just go straight away, attitude, injuries, forget it. You're talking, whoosh, forget it. This has been written about by a few people, just to be clear. When Darwin was on the verge of moving across to Saudi, right at the end of January, Liverpool was seriously lining up Victor Osimhen on loan. And Victor Osimhen on loan, because people will go, our wages, 500 grand a week, he asked for Chelsea. He was going to fit within our wage structure is the info that we've got, not like stupid demands. Now, from this summer, he's got a year left to go on that Napoli deal. Napoli want him gone. They're not interested in keeping him around. He wants to leave Napoli. There is a lot of suitors. Now, the fact that we looked at him in January, yes, it would have been a loan. So less risk, try before you buy type of thing and all that. But you just wonder, strikers are coming at different levels. The one thing no one can debate whatsoever about Victor Osimhen is his goal machine. You can talk, oh, it was Turkey. It's a goal machine. The facts just prove that. All his metrics are in like the 99th percentile for all the putting the ball in the back of the net, the aerial side as well. Yes, he's a bit different, but Trev, I'll put to you this way. If they're prepared to spend 120 million on Alexander Isak, who has injury questions, why wouldn't you be prepared to spend 60 million quid on Victor Osimhen, who plays about the same minutes in that regard? And also a little bit older. I get that. Will be 27 in December, but he's a goal machine. And goal machines forgive a variety of sins, don't they? Whatever your team's like, if you've got someone who just bangs in the goals all the time, it changes so much. So the forward options at the moment, you throw those in with Isak, Alvarez, Ekitike, Delap, João Pedro's been linked, Kuna, Osimhen. Forward's the sexy area and the sexy names. And do you know what? If I wasn't giddy 18 minutes ago, I'm giddy now.
And rightfully so. Because I agree with you. There's the top tier Julian Alvarez, I think, is possibly top of most people's. A lot of people will really like Isak, but don't believe it's possible at the money that Newcastle will want to charge. But if we take ourselves out of the league of spending big in that way, if we got a situation, Dave, and bear with me here, where two of these guys come in that we've just mentioned. I was just looking at the figures for Ekitike, and he's with Frankfurt now. I think he's been for the last little while 4-14 last season, 13-27 so far this season. Not bad. Liam Delap, and he's 22, and I think Delap is 22 as well. Liam Delap's numbers just in the last couple of seasons, he had a loan at Stoke in 22-23 where he scored 3 in 22. He went to Preston North End, then he had another loan where he scored 1 in 15. He had a loan at Hull City last season, 8 in 31, and this season he's got 12 in the Premier League for Ipswich Town in a team that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I think that stands to him. Osimhen, just to give a little bit of back up to what you said, this dude, let's just take it back to 2019-20 with Lille, where he scored 13 and 27. He then got 65 and 108 for Napoli, which is top tier, and 20 so far for Galatasaray out of 23. These are super numbers, man. And do you see a situation where we could end up with a combination of those two, given the fact that there is a high likelihood that a lot of our own high-profile forwards will fetch in quite a bit of money for the club?
Yeah, it is. I think, like you said, to almost take it right back to the start, it all comes down to who departs, doesn't it? Because we all know everyone can see Núñez is going, so there's going to be one vacancy. Like, that's absolutely no doubt at all. Diaz, as we've talked about, and we'll talk about again with even an update now, you wouldn't put any serious money on him being at Anfield next season. And I know people will then be saying it's got to be a left-sided attacker, and I get that. That's possible. Jota's really the question mark, because if you are going to get money for him, as you said, it's now or never, isn't it, really, if you're going to get any money at all. If they're happy with Jota, and if Jota's happy being almost he'll feel like you get the billing that Jota's almost going to be the fifth choice attacker next season, aren't you? Like, you'll play a certain minutes, you'll come in, but we can't rely on you. So you are relegated to fifth choice forward that way. I just wonder, I wouldn't dismiss it, but it'll all depend how many depart from the forward line this summer.
If one of those departing is our most high-profile forward, Mo Salah, that's one thing. But if Mo stays and we get Osimhen in, you could be looking at a situation where you're losing two of your front line to AFCON. And that's on a very regular basis, as we know. And that is something that's worth considering too. That is the exciting striker potential news. And I don't know how much weight you put by any of it. At this stage, like we say, it is still very much rumor stuff. But another lad that could be involved in the mix there, you mentioned earlier on, is Chiesa, because who knows what's going to happen with that kid. Harvey Elliott's another one who could be bringing in some money to fund further recruitment. We know that one guy who is very liked by other clubs, even if it's not necessarily Liverpool Football Club, is Endo. And, I think a lot of us were watching that yesterday and thinking, is there ever going to be a better opportunity for that guy to come in and play a game and do the thing that we clearly needed done, which was a bit of help for our two weirdly malfunctioning centre halves and sort of absentee fullbacks? If you're ever going to get a game doing a bit of mopping up and helping out in a defensive midfield role, it's yesterday, not a sniff. I think it's sad, but I think we could be seeing the end of Endo. With that in mind, are there any viable links for that guy in terms of movement away from the club?
Yeah, I mean, how could you not love Endo, and just the fact that when the gum shield goes in and he comes on and he locks it down for the 15, 20 minutes, however he gets. But Ultimately, yeah. I mean, it's on the screen there. Eintracht Frankfurt have been linked with Endo, so people will make links to Ekatike and part of that deal. But genuinely just inquiring around and, as much as we do asking, interest, Endo, God, yeah. Multiple countries, multiple teams in that regard. Not of the level of Liverpool for obvious reasons, but there's a sadness as I say this. I am now really struggling to see Endo at Liverpool next season for a combination of factors. That Arne Slot clearly doesn't fancy him. Yes, his attitude's fantastic, but even with a fantastic attitude that Arne Slot calls out, still doesn't play him at all. So that tells you everything you need to know. And there are clubs all over Europe looking at Endo. Absolutely would love to have him in their ranks. So he won't be short of a suitors. He won't be short of a move. And I actually said, genuinely like you, I say it's a little bit of sadness. I'm really struggling to see Endo at Liverpool next season for all those reasons.
Now, before we finish with whatever it is we've heard about Salah, who's the other big contract thing, because I think we've all made our peace with a certain local lad being on his bike to that lot in Madrid. Let's just talk about the midfield. It was a very dispiriting sight yesterday. You had fellas who we know to be of high quality, like Dams Bosley, like Ryan Gravenberch, having poor games. Mac had a decent game, a great goal. But again, we are clearly lacking in the position that Endo fills there. I say it every show, and I keep saying it because I honestly think that people try to gaslight you about defensive midfielders and Liverpool. One of them seems to be one of the most high-profile reporters, and that story that broke during the week about how it's not a priority. When I said something, quoting that and saying, well, I got a lot of people saying, well, in fairness, it's not really a priority. But it is a priority. It has been a glaringly obvious, screeching priority of the club for years. And people seem to have gotten themselves into a mindset where they have been told relentlessly that Gravenberch is the solution.
Yeah.
Well, what question are they asking that he's the solution to? Because it ain't who's a good lad to play defensive midfield. Because Matt can't do that either, and neither can Dom. And Curtis can't do it either. None of them are designed that way. It seems incredibly odd to me that people are allowing themselves to be sort of, like I say, completely gaslit by the presentation of the facts by the people in the know. I refuse to be bullied like that. I've seen my club chase people with their tongues out summer after summer. So it seems odd to me that someone is coming out at the level Ornstein is, who's supposed to have all this information, and putting that out there, if it's not, again, more of this dreaded briefing shit from the club. And that makes me kind of queasy inside, I'll be honest with you, Dave. It's not a good look for people who have been actually watching the games and understanding how that midfield unit works.
Yeah. It came from, for those who didn't see it, David Ornstein started doing it, his Q&A, and he was asked directly, any Liverpool links to any midfielders, what have you heard, anything floating around? And he was quite distinct in the answer, like you said. I know you retweeted it, Trev, that doesn't seem to be the department at the top of their priority list, and you can understand why, which a lot of people don't want to hear, and understandably. Zubamende was viewed as the market opportunity, quote unquote, and when that didn't come to fruition, they didn't pivot towards another target. And he mentions that you look at Gravenberch's outstanding season, Endo's contributions, McAllister, Curtis Jones shining when called upon. It is interesting. Me and David Lynch, because we did Media Matters early, we disagree on this, because he actually said, yeah, I think that you would want someone in, but it's not a priority. Here's how I stand on it. I think it's quite simple for me. He only trusts 4 of them for a start. Let's be clear on that. He only trusts 4 midfielders. There's indefatigable evidence to that, isn't there? The minutes, the stats. He trusts 4 of them. Let's be clear. Those 4 are being run into the... Curtis had injuries, yeah, but we keep talking about Gravenberch, fatigue. The others are being worked so hard. They look tired. They look fatigued, whatever you want to call it. That's been a factor. We've said that, especially when we watched the dip in Gravenberch's performance. Everyone's seen that. We've also, Trev, people ignore this factor. We've got extremely lucky. Maybe it's got to give credit to the S&C team, Ruben Peters, but none of those have got injuries, which has been good, fortunate, whatever adjective you want to use. But imagine if one of those had got injuries. Slot would be using a midfielder he doesn't trust. That's just there. The evidence is there. You would want another midfielder in so he can rotate a bit more. I understand that you don't want Morton. You don't trust Endo. You don't really trust Harvey. I get all that. My worry is with this line and the way they see it, we've had names that we've been thinking about, Trev. We've been thinking like, send me a Carlos Baleba. Give us that physicality. Give me an Adam Wharton in there, young, left-footed, progresses it brilliantly. That even maybe give me a Kamara at Aston Villa with 2 years left to go. Those sort of signings can really move the needle. Because, by the way, this has been a bit of a problem for us for, about 4 years since Jurgen Klopp's tried to place Fabinho and all those. I am just slightly concerned. I suspect a midfielder will come in. I want to be clear on that. I do suspect people will go and a midfielder will come in. I just think it's going to be maybe the right phrase is a development midfielder, a junior midfielder, if you want to call it that. One who's probably set a target of something like 1,000 minutes, a bit of rotational. Definitely not like the level of the players we've just named who would cost a bit of a pretty penny at the same time. You can't deny that. But I don't like this story. I don't like the briefing, but there's no smoke without fire, and there's too many saying it at the same time.
I feel like we can get away with the current midfield setup if we have two centre halves at their absolute peak. If we get Ali back, you and I both have thoughts about what Ali's going to be doing next season because of the situation with the incoming goalkeeper. And I think both of us are fairly certain that it might be quite a shocking thing that's about to happen there with Ali as well. But if we've recruited two very effective fullbacks who are good defensively, then perhaps we can work our way around that, and that system can work, and you can fine tune it, and who's going to drop and who goes forward. And but again, why did we spend the summer chasing Caicedo, Tchouameni, the lad from Palace? Why do we care about this? If it's again, it just seems like putting your fingers in your ears and going la la la. And I find that a little bit distressing. But look, it is what it is, and it's only a lad saying his opinion. So we have to cut him some slack. It's very easy to go where I went immediately and wonder, has he been briefed? But it does make me a little bit nervous. I will absolutely admit that.
Yeah.
The last story that we want to talk about in relation to Liverpool, we've had the very obvious chat with Virgil, where Virgil made some noises and we can all get excited about it, and there's likes and all sorts of stories that can spin off from that. With Salah, who, God love him, has been starved of the football in the last few matches, and also not registered a goal or assist now in quite a while, for this kid. It's remarkable. We all want to see him put that season of unrivaled numbers up.
Yeah.
It's got to start happening again soon, quickly. Have we heard anything in relation to Mo's contract? Because I did hear a rumor, Dave, in one of those things that you hear from a fella who knows a fella. But they're not worth the breath that they're spoken with most of the time. And people mean well, but they actually don't have a fucking clue, really. So I was just wondering, what have you heard in relation to the Salah contract?
There's always something with Salah's contract. I mean, he's pictured down the Albert Dock, and it turns out to be an AXA advert, and we get excited with that. There's plenty of suggestions that it's close, and we had the whole stories coming from Egypt, didn't we? And various journalists there. So we thought, right, local, that's positive, like it quite often can be. So you'd hope there, but you're not really hearing any more. And then even today, you're hearing more about Salah, Liverpool, it's close to it and all this. In simple terms, can't get anything on it. Really can't. There's not really And we know how Salah's camp works. We know how Rami works, etc. Rami is very crystal clear when he does tweet now and again to play his games or say, like, no one knows anything type of thing, as we always like to say. So I would love to say there's something close, but there's always a story, shall we say, with Mo Salah and his contract. Do we have anything? No. Do I want to believe them? God, yes. But at the end of the day, nothing we can really tell you on this.
There's one last one that I want to mention. That's a kind of a googly that's been thrown into the chat. And I heard some chat about this guy on a couple of different shows recently. And that is Angelo Stiller.
Yeah.
Who, seems to fit a lot of the boxes in terms of the midfield signing. What if anything is there about this, or is it just one of these guys who, again, I believe there's a clause in his contract, and maybe it's more agent maneuvering? What if anything have you heard around this guy?
Yeah, we dug a bit on him and we ran him on transfer market metrics. So he has a clause, absolutely, but it doesn't come in until we're told next summer, so 2026, where it's around 36 million euros. So if you get those in Tesco and Sainsbury's, you're probably talking about 30 million quid, something like that. So, yeah, Stuttgart will probably be prepared to sell for a bit of a premium rather than have it for that lower fee just now. Now, it's Stiller, there's two factors to him, Trev, and they stack up so differently. On the ball, that left foot, that progression, that passing, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Spots a pass, links it all together, great. And when you look at where he often occupies on the pitch, you're thinking deep lying playmaker. We've looked at those when we had a look at Andre, and that's great. But the physical metrics, considering our midfield lacks probably physicality, as we say, more than anything at the moment, that is where your big question marks around him are. Great on the ball, absolutely a real talent, and you can see why people like him. But off the ball, there's a heck of a lot of questions, is the best way I can put it.